everybody for being quiet and paying attention. We're doing social studies. Our standard is S8, H9-A. We're doing World War II. We went over earlier about leaders of the world. This is the lesson that we're going to be testing on because we've been reviewing it for the last couple of weeks. So, leaders of the world, War II. The United States leader in World War II, we have Franklin Roosevelt. He was the president of the United States from 1933 to 1945. This is when the war began. He was the first U.S. president that was involved in the war. Make sure you're writing it in on your guided notes. The rise of dictatorships around this time. This was a time in history that saw a rise in dictators, and these are the most famous one is the picture that you see here. If you know his name, raise your hand. If you're not familiar with him, it's Adolf Hitler. Go ahead. Okay, Adolf Hitler. So, dictator. This is one of our vocabulary words that we're going to be studying that you guys have to write down and write the definition, and it's on the board. Dictator. It's a leader who gains complete control over a country, a government. The people that they take control over, it loses most of their rights. So an example would be if I was Adolf Hitler and I come into the classroom and I say, you can't have anything unless I say so. So if you wanted something to drink, if you wanted a pencil, you had to come through me. And most of the time, dictators were not very nice. So when they came in, they wanted all the resources for themselves. So that's like if I took everybody's pencil and I said, you have to share one pencil and you guys have to pass it around. But the people I like, we get all the new sharpened pencils and we can do whatever we want. When it's time for lunch, we're gonna eat what we wanna eat, but you guys have to eat the leftovers. So that's like a simple model to get you to understand how dictators come in and they just take over and they purposely make people feel uncomfortable. Adolf Hitler was one of the worst in history. Adolf Hitler was a dictator for Germany. He believed in fascism. Fascism is also one of our words. And to break it down a little bit, he believed that Germans were superior to other people. So all the countries that he took over, he just was very aggressive. He just came in and he took all of their resources. So it's like if I come in and I just take everybody's backpack and I take your snacks and I take everything and I say you can't have anything and I don't care if you starve. That was his mentality. He felt like everybody that was German, everybody that he favored was better. And he came in aggressively and he took all of the other countries' resources. Germany suffered severe economic depression after World War I. So that was the first war. We really didn't talk about that because it's not in our standard. But before World War II, there was World War I. And World War I, they were almost completely defeated. So Adolf Hitler was very upset about that because, again, he feels like he's superior. So he feels like he should be on top no matter what. Hitler promised people that Germany would rise again. So his goal was to make sure that Germany, no matter what, would be on top again. And he did everything he could, good or bad, to make sure that this happened. He hated and blamed Jewish people for the German problems. So Jewish people, we didn't talk about that, but that's another race of people that's overseas. And when we do more geography, we'll talk about that. But Jewish people are overseas and he couldn't stand them, and he basically set out to punish them as well. So as we go deeper into the concept when we watched the video, you could see that he would forcibly gather all of them together and force them into concentration. Okay. Force them into concentration camps. Concentration camps is something where it's kind of like a jail. It's kind of like a jail. It was not pleasant. It was a whole bunch of people and they were starving. So it's like if somebody just snatched you up and locked you in the closet. Okay, and this is our little video about Adolf Hitler. Moving slow. Okay, before I start it, I want you guys to remember, make sure you're looking at your guided notes. If you need help, reach out to Ms. Wilkins. But as the video goes on, remember, we're looking for details. We're looking for any questions that we might have. And we're making sure that we answer all of the questions that we discussed for our test. Who is Adolf Hitler? Why did he do what he did? Who are the Jewish people? Be able to give me details about that when I ask you the questions. But also make sure you're following along with your guided notes and filling in the blanks that you might see in the video.
How did Adolf Hitler, a tyrant who orchestrated one of the largest genocides in human history, rise to power in a democratic country? The story begins at the end of World War I. With the successful Allied advance in 1918, Germany realized the war was unwinnable and signed an armistice ending the fighting. As its imperial government collapsed, civil unrest and worker strikes.
Micaiah Hall, please report to the front office. Micaiah Hall, please report to the front office. Thank you.
Establishing the Parliamentary Weimar Republic. One of the new government's first tasks was implementing the peace treaty imposed by the Allies. In addition to losing over a tenth of its territory and dismantling its army, Germany had to accept full responsibility for the war and pay reparations, debilitating its already weakened economy. All this was seen as a humiliation by many nationalists and veterans. They wrongly believed the war could have been won if the army hadn't been betrayed by politicians and protesters. For Hitler, these views became obsession, and his bigotry and paranoid delusions led him to pin the blame on Jews. His words found resonance in a society with many anti-Semitic people. By this time, hundreds of thousands of Jews had integrated into German society, but many Germans continued to perceive them as outsiders. After World War I, Jewish success led to ungrounded accusations of subversion and war profiteering. It cannot be stressed enough that these conspiracy theories were born out of fear, anger, and bigotry, not fact. Nonetheless, Hitler found success with them. When he joined a small nationalist political party, his manipulative public speaking launched him into its leadership and drew increasingly larger crowds. Combining anti-Semitism with populist resentment, the Nazis denounced both communism and capitalism as international Jewish conspiracies to destroy Germany.
Okay, so let's pause right there. Okay, let me review what they said already. When we talked about it, we said that Germany's economic status had failed because of World War I. In the video, it just gave us the details of why. They were blamed for starting World War I. And when you start a war and you lose, you have to pay what was reparations. What they were saying, reparations, it's like a fee. So if you have a service, you have a fee. So if you start the war, you have to pay back everybody that was affected by the war. And that can be expensive. You're talking about countries. So he was very upset, and so were the people, because now they were not able to eat. So that's one of the reasons why Germany's economic status had failed. The video went into saying that the people blamed the politicians. The politicians weren't necessarily Jewish, but somehow Hitler was able to tie Jewish people into the scenario for his political power. And he convinced the people to follow him. So that's what's going on in the first part.